And then out of this, what's emerging now is a new category of artificial intelligence that allows you to predict language. So you can put in a topic about anything, and it can suggest to you what is the likely next set of words that could appear in a sentence or in a paragraph or in a story. Naturally, most of this won't be perfect, but what it does open up is the opportunity for people who've never been writers before, or people who are daunted by different writing tasks. I can try my hand at that. So we're saying that what you can help to do is in the middle part where the mechanics of writing come in. You can help human beings to access the language better. You can help them to summarize things, to understand and construct language in different ways. And so it's becoming easier and easier for more people to participate in the writing of content. And so though this becomes valuable for people who might find it daunting.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Internal Marketing Podcast. And I'm very excited today, again, as I always am, with these conversations. But today I get the opportunity to speak with another fellow Jamaican, right? He's not in Jamaica anymore, so he's probably feeling a little bit nippy where he is right now, not too much. But I get the opportunity to have a great conversation today with a fellow Jamaican, and it's going to be a really interesting one because it's going to drive at the heart of what I think perhaps is holding back a lot of marketers and employees who want to be advocates for the company's brand, but may get a little bit stuck on how to do so. And we're going to be digging into copywriting specifically and how AI, artificial intelligence, can support that process. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I get to speak to Paul Thompson. Now, Paul is the CEO of HelloScribe, and we're going to hear more about his company at the end of our conversation. But I'm very happy to have Paul here today to have this discussion about how AI can be utilized to support, enhance, and kickstart, essentially, we're going to get into those details, your copywriting exercises, particularly based on the fact that we have employees who we want to bring into the fold, developing copywriting as part of our marketing activities. How does AI help to support that? So welcome, Paul. Thanks for joining me here today.
Well, thank you. This is so awesome. This is such a pleasure to be with you here, Kerry-Ann.
So, Paul, obviously this is your line of business, but
Oh,
before
for
we
sure,
get into
sure.
the rudiments of how marketers and company employees can use AI in copywriting and so on, I wanted to start off by giving me a sense of what you're seeing on the ground, because obviously what we're seeing happening is more and more companies are leaning in or incorporating employees in the whole process of content marketing mainly, and using them as experts and people resources to develop copy as
Right.
part of content marketing activities. Do you see this happening in your line of work, and if so, why do you think that is?
Well, in a word, 2020. If there was never another time in history where creating content and engaging with folks on digital platforms has been important, 2020 is that year. And I think we're all already resigned to the fact that going forward, a lot of what we do in traditional marketing has to be rethought. And digital is going to play an even more central role in this new dispensation, as it were. Now, based on what I'm seeing on the ground, there are folks who are now realizing that the one-to-many approach that we've traditionally used in marketing, you put a campaign together, you have a huge budget, and you have a splashy TV ads and billboards and all the excitement. Like most of that is going out the window. Folks are now finding that it's important for us to now find these platforms where we can engage potential customers. The building of relationships is more important. And the truth is, people don't want to engage necessarily with brands. People want to engage with people. And the digital platforms that exist, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the LinkedIns of this world, and the others that will soon emerge, those now provide the opportunity for employees to now begin engaging their customers in different kinds of ways. And so what I'm seeing from my vantage point is a lot more investment in content marketing. A lot more companies are stepping up and saying, we need to educate our customers about our products some more. We need to be engaging with them from an education, not necessarily a sales only perspective, where I shoot an ad at you and it's 10% off if you act today. And it's changing a lot. So people want to be more informed because there's so much information out there.
And we hear it all the time. It's no longer about B2C or B2B, it's human to human, recognizing that as brand owners, we're
Hmm.
marketing to human beings with needs and wants and desires. And what we see happening, as you said, it's that people are gravitating to the brands that are really providing them with value, that are helping them with the information that they need to live their lives. Of course, based on the industry that you're operating in,
Yeah.
you can establish yourself as the brand that offers the expertise that helps them to be able to do what they need to do. So we've established then that companies are really leaning into their employees as the faces of the organization, the experts to be able to deliver the information through content marketing. Do you think there's a quid pro quo though? Because sometimes I guess there may be a hesitation to think that, well, maybe employees don't want to represent the brand in this way. It's marketing's job. Let marketing do it. They're paid to do it.
Mhm.
But some people would see it as maybe there is a personal branding opportunity for the employee in all of this. So it's not just about the company brand getting the obvious benefit,
Sure,
but there could be a
sure.
spin off benefit of employees building their personal brands. What do you say about that?
That's interesting. I've seen recently in Jamaica as well, companies supporting their employees, like their side projects and stuff like that. I see a lot of them highlighting the things that their employees are doing. And for employees who see that as an opportunity for personal branding, it's really the icing on the cake.
Mm.
Because you work for somebody, you're getting a salary, you're expected to perform a certain role. But if in the process you're also building your personal brand, why not?
Why not?
That's so why not?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
so
Absolutely. I did a post on LinkedIn a little while back talking about your PR problem because it's no longer just about your performance. It's about how you're perceived to be delivering and adding value. How do you show up in meetings? How do you
mhm,
interface with thought leaders or opinion leaders or other
mhm,
people, not only in the company but in your
mhm,
industry? It's so very, very important. And so to
mhm,
my mind, if you have the opportunity to represent your organization in this way as one of the brand advocates that's delivering valuable content in a real way, then why not? Why not show up like that? I think
exactly.
it's awesome. So now we're sold. We're going to be onboarding employees to start delivering content, developing content, and disseminating content for a content marketing strategy.
Mhm,
Now, obviously, now the daunting thing is how do we do that
mhm,
with the kind of a frequency and perhaps even at the quality or the standard that we think is something that's capable
relevant.
of being
Mhm,
distributed,
right.
right? And people would be
Yeah.
afraid. And before we started this discussion, I was saying, look, as an employee, I'm like, okay, I can probably spit out a blog or
Mhm,
two
mhm,
because those are the big topics on my mind. But if you want me to do this every week or a couple of times a month, I could get pretty scared. And that's where AI has been coming in and helping a lot of brands to make that process more
mhm,
seamless. And so, my first question in that regard would be could you kind of just break it down? Because I recognize we have
mhm,
a broad array of
mhm,
listeners who are at different stages of
mhm,
maturity with respect to how they're incorporating digital in how they do marketing. So could you just kind of start off and give us kind of like a AI
mhm, mhm.
101 in terms of how it's employed in content marketing, content development
Well, of
activities?
course, there are more erudite persons than myself who are more vested in the science of artificial intelligence than I am. But if you think about it this way, um, artificial intelligence is really about understanding patterns, right? Being able to understand patterns in behavior, patterns in phenomena, patterns in just everyday life. And funny enough, this is something that we've been doing since the beginning of time. The Dogon tribes in
Mm.
Western Africa were the first astronomers and mathematicians. They used to look up in the sky and they used to see the alignment of the stars. And based on those patterns, they would know when to plant their crops, they would know when to fish. They created astrological symbols and signs, and they were able to come up with predictions of how people would behave based on what time they were born and how the stars align in the sky. All of this is what we call pattern recognition. And this has been happening from the beginning of time. Furthermore, human beings have always had an obsession with imbuing inanimate objects with human qualities. I mean, if you want to go deeper into philosophy and God and stuff like
Mm.
that, people have this idea that we can imbue human qualities into inanimate things, right? So people used to worship the trees and the rivers and
Mm.
things because they thought those things had human qualities about them. And then those things permeated into the stories people told. If you read those childhood stories like, Frankenstein or Pinocchio or all those kind of stories when you were growing up, had this fascination about imbuing these inanimate things with human qualities. Now, fast forward to the 1500s, this
Mm.
guy by the name of Francis Bacon was the first one to document what they now call the scientific method. And that was the foundation for a lot of the scientific discoveries that we now enjoy in life. Now, moving forward from that, in the
Mm.
1950s and 60s, people were starting to develop these algorithms, these computers. Now, how could we put these human qualities into these inanimate things called computers? How could we get it to predict the next word that should
Mm.
appear in a sentence, or predict a pattern of numbers that should appear in a sequence of numbers? How do we do this? And over time, as these machines got smarter and people created robots and
Mhm.
these kinds of ideas, this fascination has continued throughout time. But then in 2012, something very special happened. There was sort of a breakthrough, as it were, where folks began to see that if you were given large sets of data from the internet, you could actually predict certain patterns in different sets of data. So you could go onto Facebook, for example, and you could look at all of the likes that people have about a certain topic. And as a brand, you could now align yourself with the things that people like, because now we understand that people like different memes or different videos or different things. And then you could start to create content based on all of these patterns. And so as the thing evolved into different areas of marketing and advertising and
Mm.
public relations and things, all of this data that people produce on the internet provide the foundation for these what we call pattern recognition. And if you can recognize a pattern, then it is likely that you can predict something that is likely to happen, right? Now, in 2019, something
Mm.
else emerged, which were referred to as language transformers. People were saying that, okay, if we could recognize patterns in self-driving cars and marketing data, what if we could do that for the written word? What if we could do that for language, right? The English language is fascinating. Language in general is
Mm.
fascinating. And if you have all of this data on the internet that people have written, all of these articles, these books,
Yes, it
these
is.
podcasts, these videos, all of these movie scripts and stories, thousands and thousands and millions of petabytes of information that are on the internet. We've created more information in the past 20 years than we've created in the previous 2,000 years. So there's so much data out there, and people are saying, okay, how now can we use that to understand
Oh, yes.
language? Yes. And then out of this, what's emerging now is a new category of artificial
Mm.
intelligence
Mm.
that allows you to predict language. So you can put in a topic about anything, and it can suggest to you what is the likely next set of words that could appear in a sentence or in a paragraph or in a story, right? Now, naturally, most of this won't be perfect, but what it does open up is the opportunity for people who've never been writers before, or people who are daunted by different writing tasks, say, I can try my hand at that. Because what we recognize is that the writing process, especially in writing, is composed of really three things. It's composed of your intuition, as in the idea that you have about what you want to write. And then there is the mechanics of the writing, the grammar, the syntax, the structure, style. And then there's the judgment at the end of it to know whether what you've written is actually good, right?
Mhm.
So we're
Mhm.
saying that for the intuition part, you can't really replace the human there. And for the judgment part, you can't
Right.
really replace the human there either. But what you can help to do is in the middle part where the mechanics of writing come in. You can help human beings to
Right.
access language better. You can help them to summarize things, to understand and construct language in different ways. And so it's becoming easier and easier and easier for more people to participate in the writing of content. And so now this becomes valuable for people who might find it daunting. If you use Grammarly, for example, Grammarly is like a grammar correction application that people use. Millions of people over the world now use it. So it's now people feel more confident about writing emails or writing stories because it's now easier. And that's the thing. We want to make, it's about making it less for more people to participate in the creative process.
That just sounds wonderful because it's clearly, as you say, it's opening up a lot of doors for people who would want to be a part of the process and just can't or feel they can't.
It's a company in Europe, a recruitment company, and they wanted to establish themselves as thought leaders in their particular industry. And so they contacted us and we implemented one of our solutions. And essentially, what our solution did for them was we were able to identify across the internet all of the best written content out there that they were able to curate and publish to their audience. So there's the creation of content that you can do for yourself, but there's also the curation of stuff. And because there's so much stuff being created out there in so many different industries, many companies are finding it useful now to curate videos, to curate articles, to curate infographics, to curate photographs, to curate all of these things and simply republish them to their audience under their brand name, because it serves the purpose of promoting whoever produced the content, but also saying that it's coming from us. This is how we think about the world. And so from a practical standpoint, in terms of even financial education, there's so much great stuff that's out there. And sometimes companies those don't have the bandwidth or the talent internally to produce that on their own. So what they might be able to do is to curate a lot of this content. And so that's a
Oh,
very,
yeah.
practical application of how AI is being used on social media. So a lot of the articles that you see companies share, a lot of the articles that you see individuals share on their social media is part of a curated process where it's curated all in one bundle and then folks just share and reshare this to their audience. So, that's just one, very practical and useful example. Same thing with photographs. As you know, artificial intelligence is really a field of study. And one of those categories is what they call computer vision. And what computer vision is essentially is the same technology that is in these self-driving cars. The same category of technology. People are able to recognize patterns in images. So, for example, if your brand was red, right, the AI can go in and say, okay, I want everything that is that brand color, every stock photograph that exists on Getty Images, that is your brand color. I want to be able to curate all of that content. And so whenever I share a bit of content, it will reflect your brand image, right? So you don't have to hire an agency to go and go through and search through all of these millions of stock photos. The AI can actually do it for you and curate it around your brand image. So that exists,
Wonderful. That's excellent. So basically, AI is just scouring the web, pulling all of the content together, curating it, pulling it together, and using all of that rich gathering of information that it would have done to spit out what is akin to a first draft, so that at least you have something to start with. And as you said, when you're talking about intuition and judgment, the human side, of course, would be applied to it to ensure that what ultimately is the end product and then gets disseminated to the end user is really in keeping with what had intended.
So you're not copying the thing that exists. You're looking at it and you're saying, what if I were able to create something that has a similar style or has a similar sound to this, but whatever the creation is an original
Word for
creation.
word.
So in other words, it doesn't plagiarize stuff. What it really does is it's just the way humans learn, if you think about it. If you've learned to ride a bike, chances are you learned it by watching somebody do it first. And then you started to mimic what they did. And over time you started to practice and practice, and over time you were able to ride a bike or skip. It's the same process. You see? So it doesn't copy or plagiarize.
Yeah.
It simply mimics based on what it is saying, if
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense to you.
It totally does. So that's good to know because I think that's probably one of the first concerns that people would have raised if you're going to be using AI like that. Now,
Hmm.
can you speak
Hmm.
to what are the results that you've seen that companies have been experiencing?
There's a platform out there that allows you to summarize and create a so whenever you're doing a piece
Mm,
of writing, for example, you usually
okay.
start with a summary of your idea. You start with a summary. What are your sources? What are your references? And what you're able to do is just plug it in, and it comes up with all the sources and references and creates this nice outline for you that you can start from, right? We've seen companies take that approach, especially when they have to like optimize for search engines and stuff like that. They want to know that they're bringing in the right kinds of links, they're bringing in the right kinds of sources, etc. And they're creating these nice briefs that they're able now to present
Mm,
to their marketing teams or to their external partners and say, this is the brief that I have. So you as a marketing director or CMO would be able to come up with briefs much easier to say, okay, these are the ideas that I have. This is the brief, go ahead and produce a piece of content based on this brief. So like the briefing process is,
mm,
is now becoming much easier because the AI is able to do that for you. In terms of the creative writing process, a lot of it is very, very new, obviously. I mean, new as in 2020
mm.
new. And so it's still a lot of awareness that needs to happen, still a lot of experimentation that is happening. And AI still needs a
Wow.
lot of hand holding in order for it to truly work for you. But as we get through the stage and we're moving forward in leaps and bounds, I mean, every day there's some kind of new innovation out there. And so as these become more available and more widely available to the general public, to your internal marketing teams, what it will do, I think, is
Mm-hmm.
just really make it much easier for folks to come up with ideas. So there won't be a struggle to come up with ideas for blog content or social media content or whatever you want to produce as content, LinkedIn posts, whatever.
I guess the obvious question is, so we're excited,
Mm,
if we're not
mm,
using
mm,
AI as yet, we better jump on this train. I think
mm,
we're sold on that. So
mm,
for
mm.
anyone who is listening, any marketers who are listening and want to incorporate AI.
A platform like
Hmm.
Reddit, for example. So Reddit is a gold mine for discovering a lot of these new innovations.
Absolutely.
Your friendly neighborhood Google search is also a great place to start. And my position is this: at the leadership level, I think
Hmm.
leadership has to demonstrate the latitude, or to give employees and marketing
Yes,
teams a
always. Yeah.
latitude to experiment, to give them the sandboxes that they can go in and try things, and sort of give them that encouragement, to pursue these opportunities. Because sometimes we're from the sort of school of thought where the brand has to be protected at all costs. Everything that goes out into the public domain has to be photoshopped. It has to be curated carefully. It has to be
Hmm.
so carefully and artfully done. It has to be so strategic that sometimes folks tiptoe into it, but the tiptoeing many times
Hmm.
leaves you behind because many persons are taking these giant leaps
Yeah.
forward. And so what I would encourage leadership teams to do is to create these sandboxes internally where you can experiment with these
Hmm.
technologies and see which ones work for you. And then there are folks
Yeah.
like ourselves out there, HelloScribe. What we try to do is to help folks navigate the terrain, to explore these technologies, because we invest a lot of time in the research, in the finding out and the
Mm.
experiment. We try to drink our own Kool-Aid as much as possible. So once you come in and you start having these conversations, at least you'll have a starting point for yourself, because the configuration for each organization might look different.
And that's really how it should
Hmm.
be, I guess, if you're incorporating any kind of new
Hmm. Hmm.
technology or new digital tool into what you're doing. The trial and error, the
Hmm.
testing, it's really the way to go, especially if it's something that you're not altogether sure about or comfortable with, or certainly if maybe you need to get buy-in from other stakeholders in the organization. That testing allows you to be able to prove what it is you need to prove or demonstrate what you need to demonstrate to get that done. Come
My
away.
early experimentation with a lot of these platforms and software tells me that what AI really is an enabler. It's not a replacement.
Mm,
And so bringing your own intuition, your own creativity, your own judgment to the process is even more important now than it
yeah.
has been in the past, right? Because these tools are here to stay. They're not going anywhere. They're going to proliferate. And this next decade, we're going to see a grand leap forward in the use of these tools in all kinds of organizational situations. And so the key takeaway for me would be to say, look, this is an enabler. And the quicker you get on board is the better it's going to be for your organization, because it's not going anywhere.
It certainly isn't. And I'm glad you addressed that point, because I know we discussed plagiarism earlier in the conversation. And then obviously I think the second question is, when you started to share things that AI can do to support how you do marketing, it's like, well, okay, if it's even writing the creative brief, where do I fit in all of that? And I totally get that. Would obviously be a concern that a lot of folks have. But as you said, at the top
Right.
of it, there is the intuition and the judgment part of how we create content, neither of which AI is able to bring to the table for all of the obvious reasons. It's a robot kind of a thing. So there still is the need for that human interaction, and that human involvement, rather, with the process. And so what AI really does for you is it really is about making your job easier, and really just being an enabler to help you enhance what it is that you do. And I think that's a great nugget to end the conversation with today. So, Paul, this has been a great conversation. I'm so appreciative that you've taken your time to come and share everything that you've shared with us today. I think for those of us who were a little bit on the fence about AI and how it can be incorporated, and some people probably didn't even realize that we've come this far in how we've been incorporating AI in content marketing, is great. But I think the great news, certainly from an internal marketing perspective, is that if we as marketers are very serious about incorporating more employees in the company, and incorporating them in the content development process, folks really need not feel daunted.
We want you to support this movement towards incorporating technology in the work that we do across the board. Whether you bring us on as your consultants or not, that would be great. But even if not, it's time to engage the young people in the organization. They know the technology, they were born inside of it. Give them the tools that they need, and just let them explore. I mean, I would give you a pitch to say, HelloScribe, we're a consulting agency, and we also build products. We build software products, we build AI products. We're in the process of just launching a new product called HelloScribe.guru is the name of the product. And what we're enabling folks to do is to write a first draft of any idea they have. If you have an idea for an article or a blog, you just go in and enter a few fields, and it spits out a first draft for you. But beyond that, we are a consulting firm, and so we're leveraging these technologies across a variety of disciplines, and we'd want you to support us. But beyond that, we want you to embrace the future, because it's here and it ain't going nowhere.
It certainly is not. I think that's an awesome call to action. It's not just about supporting HelloScribe, and obviously that's something that
Thank you.
you would want, but it's a
Thank you.
great call to action. It's kind of calling us to rise to the occasion of what's happening right now and what's going to continue to happen in the very near future. So join us next time, and we'll continue to flip the marketing conversation right here on the Internal Marketing Podcast. The Internal Marketing Podcast is available on your favorite podcasting app.